All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Wayne's World Garage. Today, we're splitting some firewood. So we had this nice red oak tree that fell down in the woods. It was a big tree. Well, not that big, but for Maryland, it's a big tree. It's 20 some odd inch diameter. Here's a picture. I'll show you a picture of it. And I brought one of it to the sawmill, a 17 footer. Another 17 footer we brought here. I cut it up into wheels, 18-inch wheels. And then I had a 10, 12-foot piece. And we put that into 18-inch wheels to make into firewood. So this could be pretty boring, but what I'll do is I'll record it anyway, just set the GoPro up because it's free to do, and we'll probably sit and fast forward a little bit after you see me fighting these big wheels for a little bit. It's not fun, but that's the way it goes, but I don't mind doing it. So now what we do is I take these wheels, because I've got them all bucked into 18-inch pieces, which is nice, and then we roll them onto the log splitter, and then we crank away. And unfortunately, these wheels are a little bit bigger than I like to deal with. These are kind of big and they're heavy. If they fall on my toe, they'll bruise my foot or something. No, they're hard to move around, so you got to use the cant hook to roll them onto this thing. It's a good thing we have the log lift on this splitter. If I didn't have the log lift, I couldn't get these up here. We could use a vertical splitter, but it's working pretty well. We've got a little pile. I've got probably half a dozen of these guys done so far, and you got a little pile of firewood, and we got some bigger ones. These are 20 inches in the back, and they're going to be for the base of this pile. So it should be the last pile of the winter we have to do. So we'll see how that works out. All right, well, let's get cranking here. When I'm working alone, I like to get two wheels on there, one on the splitter and then one on the log lift ready to go up. And that way I don't need to keep going back and forth every time and climb over the thing, just because it's a little bit easier when you're working alone. If I had two people, this would be easier because that second person would be loading the logs and I would just be flipping the levers, splitting logs. That'd be the easy job, but that's not the way it is. So I load two of these guys up at a time. So you're probably wondering, why don't you split this wheel right in the center? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, I want the heaviest part towards me, not rolling off on the other side, okay? So if I split the edge of it first, okay, then I've got the heavy part near me, and I've got smaller parts, which I don't always have to walk to the other side to move when that works out. It doesn't always work out that way. Additionally, splitting the log right down the center sometimes is a little bit more difficult. So you chip a little piece off at a time. So I very seldom, unless it's a small log, I do not split it directly down the center. I'll chip away at it. So you can see, this is just a lot of manhandling these pieces of wood here. It's red oak, as you probably guessed from the red color. But they're not very light, they're not, and I'm not 25 years old anymore, so these got to weigh 50 pounds each or something like that, and you got to kind of horse them around. I'd rather not be bending over to pick them up off the ground. So what I try to do is I try to, maneuver them so I've got two or three of them lined up. I put them so the wood coming off the splitter, off the wedge, doesn't push them onto the ground or push them off into my pile. And we kind of do it from there. It takes a little bit of time, but actually it goes very quickly. So I think this is actually pretty cool, the log lift. We're going to lift this log onto here. So get ready to watch this. I'll hit the lever closest towards the wheel, and this this wheel will get up on there on the splitter, and we'll be able to start splitting it. It took a little bit of effort to figure this guy out. So you need the right length cylinder. You also have to be able to regulate the hydraulic fluid, because you want the log splitter to go very quickly when it comes to splitting wood. But then again, I don't want to launch this wheel into my chest and off the other side. And the way it's set up now, I've never been able to do that. It will roll it forward with some enthusiasm, and it will actually hit the other side pretty well, but it stops and has never been able to come off the top. And that's what I'm trying to avoid right there. That frustrates me a little bit because it hits my hydraulic lines, and that's the way it goes. But anyway, on with the program. Get this guy out of there and get back to splitting. Obviously just too damn fast and efficient, so I moved the tractor a couple feet to put more wood on here. news. Well, there's one tank of gas. I know I should have put in 3 more ounces and be done with it. Last flipping log, and she's checked out of gas. Let me gas her up and get cracking here, Jackin. So normally, at the end of the season, every year, I put half gas in this thing. 103 octane low lead. No corn gas, no alcohol. And guess what? I've never had to replace a carburetor. It works every time. So memo to everybody else, put on non-alcohol gas in your engines at the end of the season. It's the only thing I've seen and been able to do which fixes it and makes it so they work the next time I want to use them. All right, well, we are done splitting up these wheels. These were 2 logs. One was 17 foot, 16 foot 5 inches. The other was like 10 or 12 feet, half that. I don't know, maybe whatever it is. But they're pretty good size diameter, 20 some odd inch diameter, and it made this little stack of wood here. So now we get to stack it. So let me get my wife out here and let her stack it. Just kidding. Actually, she does like stacking wood. But just a little bit of, let me talk a little bit about the log splitter. I've talked about it before. We did a video. The goal here, and I can't do it when I'm working alone, is to keep the piston moving all the time. If that piston's stopping, you ain't making firewood. So ideally, I'd have at least one more person here loading this thing up, and we'd be splitting it. And this piston would always be going back and forth, never take a break. And that's when we're most efficient. But since I'm working alone and I'm an old geezer, it's hard to do. So it's not quite so quick. A real log splitter like this is going to cost you $7,000 or $8,000. So keep that in mind if you're ever going to get into this business. Dragging these logs out of the wood is hard work. You need a tractor. And this is an old one. It's 20 years old, but it's 37 horsepower. It requires every bit of it to drag some of these big guys out. Tires are loaded, meaning that there's water in them. Not water, but beet juice or whatever it is, antifreeze. 4-wheel drive, you put the front end loader on, it gets front end weight, and I could drag these guys out. And then I had to take them home. And that all takes work. And by the time you start doing that, if you work for anything more than 10 cents an hour, you ain't making money. You're better off getting a job at McDonald's flipping hamburgers making money. And like I said, the log splitter, the goal here is log splitter is keep this thing moving. Keep that cylinder moving up and down, back and forth. So that's the story. Let me get ready to put some of this stuff away. All right, well, there you go. Thanks for watching another episode of Wayne's World Garage. Hopefully this wasn't too boring. Or maybe that's what you wanted to watch to put yourself to sleep. But just keep in mind, if any of you guys want to start a firewood business, selling firewood around here in the Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area, firewood's selling for over $300 a cord. A cord, remember, is 4 foot by 4 foot by 8 foot, 128 cubic foot stacked. Okay, so it's a reasonable amount of wood. I can cut a cord of wood and split a cord of wood in half a day, but it's not worth my time. To do this, you need to invest into a real chainsaw. Your electric saw is not going to do it. You need to invest into a real log splitter. You need a trailer or a big truck to move this stuff. And think about it. How are you actually going to make money and pay for all that equipment? A real chainsaw that I'm using here cost over $1,000. Log splitter, and I built it myself, cost thousands of dollars. I could buy a whole lot of firewood for that. Additionally, there is some risk involved. Using chainsaws is risky. Using log splitters is risky. People lose their fingers all the time. So anyway, think about that. If you want some firewood, go buy it. Probably a whole lot easier. But we do it because we enjoy being outside. We love being outside, and it's a great excuse to get out there, outdoors, and enjoy the weather. And that's the story. I'm sticking with it. Please hit subscribe.